Great, it's Friday the 31st of July. We've had to wait till some of the locals disappeared, I guess, really, because I always hate filming in front of other people. Call it what you may. But needless to say, this is the Amphitheatre. Now, what's interesting about this, we're in Cirencester, we're on Quest 31. We've had to juggle our quests around a bit because of the infamous coronavirus. So, Cirencester, what can we talk about Cirencester? It was really Carinium. Carinium was its first main part of the name that it was known as in the Roman times. Now the Romans arrived here in 48 AD. As we know, they trunked across. I think what's also important to mention at this point, although we couldn't get into St John the Baptist Church, this whole area is fairly near. I wouldn't say it's on the ley line, but it's fairly near to the St Michael's Line, and we're going to see talk much more about the St Michael's Line as the quest goes on over the next 10 days. Really, that's what we're on. So we're on one of these staycations, as they say. So we're in Blighty, and what a wonderful place it is in Blighty. You can see here. The actual amphitheatre is about a quarter of the size of Alton, to be fair. And whereas you saw when we filmed Alton earlier on in the year, we had all the exposed steps and you could see most of the amphitheatre. This particular part it's been worn and decayed over the years, but obviously they haven't excavated it as much as our French counterparts from the Roman times, really. So again, it's the same principle as Alton. Yes, we tried to pause for a little bit because obviously some of the local ladies walking past with their dogs and things. Really covered here for dog walkers and the youth. And what's nice about here, which a lot of towns can think about, the youth don't disturb it, they don't damage it. I just saw the youth put some things into the litter bins, which was lovely, which you very rarely see in other counties. So yeah, as you can imagine, so like all the Roman times, they've trunked across, invaded Britain, they've really stumped their mark in here, and this was the entertainment facility. But it wouldn't have been all fun and stuff as we know. There was slayings, there was fights, there was all sorts of things that went on here to appease or please the locals, really. So what we can just quickly say about the amphitheatre is really that the wooden seats were around about for 8,000 people. 8,000 people. And you imagine the size of this. That's smaller than a stadium, isn't it, here? And I could imagine that again with a comparison, but it's smaller than a stadium. It's aligned in parallel to the streets of the town itself, which is quite interesting. Now, sadly, there was also a bull ring here in time. So we always think about Spain with the bulls and things, but really it had a bull ring here as well. Now, James Fordham, my 9th great-grandfather, he was quite interested in this area in particular for research and study, and especially on the Grail quest, as we always are. We're always on this Grail quest trying to find the unique part to work on, as it were. So, there we are. That is the amphitheatre at Cirencester. What we just to talk about just briefly is St John the Baptist Church. Now, we couldn't get into the day that was locked, so we've got Lord Edward Neville. Now, although he's from Abergavenny, he spent a lot of time here. He was interested in St John the Baptist Church, but in particular it was actually Catherine's Chapel, which was 1140 AD. So much history here in the main area. Now, we know that in 1508, Abbot John Hackborn was very much involved in the area. He was doing much more work, and certainly he would have been speaking a lot more with my 13th great-grandfather, who was actually in the area from Abergavenny at the time. So, nice little bit of history on the Neville line there. Not too much. We see much more as we venture further down south. We see much more of the Neville line. But what's interesting, as I say, is just to get the comparison. If you watch the video on Alton, I can't emphasise that enough. Watch the video we did on Alton, which shows all the exposure of all the steps and the stairs. Watch the video on this. Do the comparison. It just shows that depending on the area, for some reason, some were smaller than others. Not always as big.